Hello, beautiful people. I am Makita Daniels. Thank you so much for clicking on my channel. On this channel, I do book reviews, but it has been 4 years since my last book review. Yes, people, 4 years. How time flies. I have been quite busy with work and studying, so making content was not really on my list anymore. But now I'm back and I just want to do what I love, just share my thoughts with you on the books I've read. Now, I want to do something different. I want to add movie reviews to my channel, and I'm going to do that by applying psychoanalysis to the stories. So I'm going to do a psychoanalytic theory to get a deeper understanding of the characters. If you like such conversations, then please join me on this journey and let's have some fun with it. Now, the first novel I want to talk about today is that of Toni Morrison, Sula. Everybody knows who Toni Morrison is, so she needs no introduction. She is one of the greatest African American writers in history, or she was. She unfortunately passed away in 2019, but we still have her books and we can analyze them, and every time we read a Toni Morrison, we discover something else. So her books are great. They are I would say you have to read her books 2 times or more, sometimes. So yeah, so we are going to do a analysis of Sula. The story is set in the Bottom, a small town in Ohio, the home of a close-knit black community. Part of the beginning of the story is it talks about a fairly man who unscrupulously deceives an enslaved man by giving him clay soil instead of the land that was promised. And the enslaved man doesn't have any rights to fight this unjust, and thus he has to accept this fraud and make the best of it. The place is called the Bottom, but it is situated on a hill, and by naming the place the opposite of what it is, Toni Morrison challenges readers to consider how language influences binary thinking and how this binary point of view is embedded in Western society. The fact that one polar opposite dominates the other has contributed to racism, which is evident in this novel, but also to other confusions. And the overall theme of the book is a friendship between two girls, Sula Peace and Nell Wright. Two girls who seems to be opposites, yet they are very alike. See, there is the binary deconstruction again, which makes Toni Morrison's books so intriguing to read. Alright, beside the theme of friendship, the book is it's like a thick description layered with sub-themes such as motherhood, racism, self-harm, sexuality, and more. I will focus only on the Peace women, Eva, Hannah, Sula, because as I was reading the book and I have noticed a pattern in their behavior. That pattern is self-harm, and how that self-harm becomes a psychological tool for self-preservation. So that's what we're going to talk about. and how they use that behavior to liberate themselves from the conventions of their community, how it made them seem independent, and in a way help them to cope with the unequal positions as women and mothers in their society. So so I'm going to use psychoanalysis, and if you don't know what psychoanalysis is, a brief explanation. You can Google it also, but I will give a brief explanation. Psychoanalysis was proposed by Freud, and it already existed, but yes, so Freud has developed a model on how to recognize certain behaviors, right? So it is psychic based, it is about our place in the family dynamic and the painful experiences and trauma that comes with it. And a big part of that is our unconscious. According to Freud, our unconscious is the storehouse of those unhealed, painful, traumatic experiences that happen in the early stages of our childhood. And because these experiences can be overwhelming and become destructive, we repress them in our unconscious, right? And they are so severe, we don't want to know about them, so we build our lives around them and create defense mechanisms such as. So when you hear someone say, talks about selective perception, is you just hearing or seeing what you want instead of the truth, or for example displacement, you're being angry or taking your anger out on someone who doesn't have anything to do with the situation because the person is less threatening. And also denial, you deny that there's a problem, and most of the time we don't recognize these issues, we don't recognize them. But when we do, then you can seek healing, right? Because defense mechanisms, they are disguising our core issues, such as fear of intimacy or fear of abandonment and so on. So let's go to the characters. Let's start with the grandmother, Eva. Eva is the mother of Hannah and the grandmother of Sula. So Eva became a both mother and father when her husband Boy abandoned the family. Quote, after 5 years of a sad and disgruntled marriage, Boy took off. End quote. Now Boy was a man, was someone who was drinking and seeking escapism in drinking because of, for black men in that community, there were little or no economic opportunities. So that was his way of escaping reality. And so he left the family, and the absence of a father creates tension in the family situation because all the care falls to the woman. And the complexity of being a mother lies in not only being the sole breadwinner, but also in the emotional development between mother and child, and that is required to shape a healthy relationship. We also have to keep in mind the intersectionality of a woman like Eva. Being both black and a woman comes with extreme difficulty in obtaining the economic resources that are necessary to live a reasonable life in society and to take care of her children. Also, the severe poverty she suffers from is the result of being subjugated to, one, white dominance, patriarchy. Second, a black woman is in a double bind when it comes to her human rights. And as a black mother, Eva was forced to seek hard physical labor far from home, leaving her children behind for weeks. Eva takes extreme measures to liberate herself from her economic hardship. Quote, 18 months later, She swept down with 2 crutches and 1 leg. End quote. So Eva had a train accident where she lost her leg and got a lifelong payment from the insurance company. So basically, Eva amputates her leg. She gets into an accident, the train accident, and her leg got amputated, and she did that to feed her children. But just as she detaches herself from her leg, she also becomes detached from any loving emotions for her children. Is making the conscious decision to sacrifice her leg for financial gain. She elevates herself from a woman dependent on the mercy of men and her community to a liberated and independent woman. Such an extreme act of liberty ultimately affects motherhood as a whole. By having that train accident, it resulted in a lifelong payment from the insurance company. So Eva was free. She could take care of her children. But her choices as a maternal grandmother greatly served as a catalyst for the psychological reasoning of her offsprings, Hannah and Sula, on how to address problems within themselves or problems in society. So that was Eva, the grandmother. The grandmother and mother. Let's continue with Hannah. So Hannah is Eva's daughter and also Sula's mother. Now with Hannah's character, there's another theory I want to add, that of a defense mechanism she uses to protect her, and it disguises her core issue. Just hear me out. Hannah was abandoned by the man in her life. Her father, boy, Ruckus, her husband, who suddenly died. That is the ultimate way of abandonment, right? Which is terribly painful. And then her mother, Eva, leaving for 18 months and returning with 1 leg. When Eva comes back, we see an emotional disconnect between mother and daughter. Remember, the unconscious stores every painful and traumatic experiences in our youth, right? And if we do not heal from them, these traumatic experiences will reveal themselves. But because our unconscious, it protects us, and because we also find a way to live with these traumas, most of the time we don't even know we are dealing with traumas. Right? Okay, let's continue. For Hannah then, abandoned by her father, mother, and then her husband, affection and love are emotions that give no satisfaction. Loving another person will result in rejection, and that is painful. And to ease the pain caused by rejection, Hannah uses sex as the solution. In the community, she is seen as a free spirit, right? But that's just a defense mechanism. She has a core issue. Because unlike her mother Eva, who guards her freedom and only flirts with men, Hannah practices a different kind of freedom when it comes to men. To Hannah, men are only good for pleasure. So she uses them freely without emotional attachment because of her fear of intimacy. Yes, Hannah has a fear of intimacy. She thinks that loving someone or caring for another person will hurt her. And so she acts like she's a free spirit. She doesn't care for, she doesn't love, and she doesn't need love. And in my opinion, her behavior is a form of self-harm disguised as sexual liberty. Because at one point, it becomes clear that Hannah longs for her mother's love. When she asks her mother Eva the question if she loved them, and she asks that because Eva did a mercy killing on her son Plum. If you read the book, you know Plum came back from World War I and was dealing with PTSD. Plum became a drug addict. And because Eva thought of him as there was no solution, she saw his addiction becoming worse and worse. And for her, the only way she could solve that problem was to burn him alive, to give him a mercy killing. Out of mercy and motherly love, she amputates him out of her life, freeing him and herself from their shared misery. A kind of freedom, a form of freedom. And I think that's why Toni Morrison's books are so intriguing. Because once again, Toni Morrison makes us question motherhood. Was Eva a good mother, a bad mother? What defines a good or bad mother? Right? And when Hannah then asks Eva, she asks Eva if Eva loved them after she burned Plum. I think a question that is justified after witnessing such a cruel act. But Eva is not the type of mother that will console her daughter. Eva is a practical mother. She feels like, I fed you, I kept you alive, therefore you should know I love you. But she doesn't say that. Instead she said, quote, I sat in that house with you and 3 beats, you ungrateful hussy, end quote. That's an unsatisfying answer, and that answer evokes disappointment and pain, or maybe an empty feeling that provokes Hannah's ultimate act of self-harm. You can mistakenly interpret the incident of Hannah setting herself on fire as clumsiness, except for in how Morrison describes Hannah's behavior before lighting the fire. For example, the repetitive action before the incident, that indicates that Hannah seeks solace for the pain her mother's words inflicted. Eva's words caused more harm than she probably meant. And in seeking relief or liberty from the pain she felt, that Hannah felt, or perhaps the numb feeling of not getting confirmation from her mother that she loved them, that she loves them, Hannah sets herself on fire with the intention to, I think, not completely burn herself to death, but liberate herself from the pain or the numbness. Hannah's act of self-harm was likely seen by her daughter Sula, who decided not to intervene when she saw her mother burning alive. But just as words and behavior created a disconnect between Eva and Hannah, this element is also the reason for the emotional disconnect between mother and daughter. And I think that's why Sula didn't feel the need to save her mother. And how does this disconnect between Hannah and Sula came about? I'll talk about that in part 2. So see you in part 2.